Welcome back to Building on a Budget Models and the second part of the Jaguar XJR-9 LM build from Hasegawa. To start with, on Monday of this week I went back to the British Motor Museum to do some more research around the real car. It's a fantastically lucky opportunity. I was looking at what you could see underneath and also got a chance to look inside. Now here's the body of the car from the kit. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell button to stay notified. One of the strange things about this body, and I don't know why this is, it might be for a different version, is that the lip here above the radiator is too large and they want you to remove it. There is a line underneath and I scored it with a brand new blade of craft knife. And then when it started to separate, I used my clippers very carefully to remove it and then tried to sand it smooth as much as possibly. This is a bit awkward, and if you're doing this, do be very careful with it. There's really no option of leaving it in because it just doesn't look like the right car. I then added some of the extra parts of the bodywork, such as the vents that go in front of the rear tyres. The vent on the left hand side is actually different on the real car. I had a look at pictures from the 88 Le Mans and I put the original one in. You also need to drill a small hole in the roof if you're making car 1, 2 or 3. I used extra thin Tamiya cement for most of these jobs. You also need to put these little slots in for the tail lights. I then used the side of a new craft knife blade to get rid of some of the mould lines. They go down the front and then along the edge of the body. I then did 2 coats of Tamiya white primer. And then 4 coats of Rust-Oleum gloss white. Now I decided to photocopy the decals to help me mask the kit. Now these aren't very well photocopied, but I didn't need the colours. By placing the paper ones in the area where they would go, I was then able to get an accurate line, and the Tamiya curved tape was really useful here. I needed to be very careful with the masking on the engine cover, as I still planned to use the yellow lines from the decals, and I would just cut out the purple sections. Again, the Tamiya curved tape was very useful here. Make sure to press it down as firmly as possible so that the paint doesn't bleed underneath. I also added the fuel caps. Because of the amount of vents and openings in this car bodywork, I also had to make sure that it was masked from the underside so that the paint didn't go around the body and through into the holes. Masking around the tops of the headlights proved to be quite difficult due to the amount of curves, so I cut the curved masking tape and then did a stencil later on instead. This has been sped up to show the process. Areas like the inside of the windscreen will need to be a matte black or grey later on, but I'm not going to paint them until later, as they will go gloss under a gloss coat. I drew a line around the edge of some of the decals in order to get a better stencil to mask around the tops of the headlights. This didn't work perfectly, as I'll show you in the next video, but it's definitely worth doing if you have awkward shapes that you need to paint. I then did 4 coats of Rust-Oleum purple gloss, which is quite a nice colour, and I think it matches the real car quite well. Did these in light coats and then came back later on to finish it off. While I was doing this, I went on to doing the wheels. The car at the museum had its wheels changed, but fortunately one of the old wheels was also on display. I used this to colour match it with a semi-gloss black. I also painted the air filler cap with silver and a little anthracite. Considering these tyres are over 30 years old and have never been opened, they're in pretty good condition. There's a small mould line down the middle, so I used a little bit of 400 grit sandpaper to remove those lines, and it came off really nicely. I usually put the tyres onto the wheels before affixing the decals, as decals can sometimes be damaged when they are added to the wheels. I think these tyres are real rubber because the mould lines came off really nicely. This is also a good way of weathering the tyres a little bit and make the car look used. The disc brakes for some reason don't have calipers on them. I decided to just leave them off. I did the discs themselves in iron and the middle of them in silver. As there were small holes for ventilation in them, I later went over with a bit of panel line accent. The tyre decals are for the Dunlop Denlock tyres, and there are only 4, so you need to be careful with them. If you're building this kit, I would recommend doing the front tyres first, because the rear tyres are almost entirely obscured. I actually ruined one of the decals, and so I was able to use it on the rear tyre, where it will be hidden and you won't even notice it. Whereas the front 2 tyres are far more useful. Then it came time to remove the masking tape off of the car itself. It's important not to leave this for too long, as if the paint gets too dry, it might be difficult to remove. You also need to be careful, as you don't want to damage any of the paintwork. This has been sped up to about 600%. Tweezers and a craft knife are really useful for this kind of job, because you don't want to get paint on your fingertips, as you might accidentally ruin some of the hard work that you've gone to. When I was peeling this off, I realised that I'd made a mistake, and I had forgotten to mask one of the white lines that's on the back, just above the car, so I had to remask it again once it was dry, and then did the white line. When doing the wheels, first put the polycap into the wheel itself. Then put a small amount of glue onto the disc brake. In this case I'm using super glue. Then fit that to the wheel. Once you're sure it's dry, then affix it to the car. I'm gripping it by the sides here so as to not damage the decals. Doing it this way, the wheels go on really nicely, and turn ever so slightly as well. There's the finished body, all ready for some decaling next video. And here's a little test fit onto the chassis. It goes on really nicely. There we are. Thanks for watching. Please comment, like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.